All right, let's get started. So what I want to do in this video is just talk a little bit about taxation comparisons and elasticity. And specifically, what I want to talk about is like how taxes affect on more inelastic or more elastic markets. So I think the best way to do this is just to dive right in and let's look at some questions. Okay, so it says, suppose the demand for outdoor recreation jobs is more elastic than the demand for retail, which is like clothing store jobs, even though the wages and numbers employed are roughly equal. If the same income tax is imposed on both jobs, the labor market for recreation will have blank compared to the market for retail jobs. Okay, so let me be clear. I'm just going to show you how I do these. And I know some TAs do it differently. It doesn't really matter the specific way you do it as long as you're getting the right answer. I'm just going to show you what I do, what I think makes sense to me. So if you do it a different way, don't worry. Just do it as long as you get the right answer. Okay, so there's two markets here. There's the market for outdoor recreation, and then there's the one for clothing. So I'm going to draw that. So right here we have outdoor. And then there's clothing. And note how it says, even though the wages and numbers employed are roughly equal. So, and there's also recreation jobs is more elastic. So just so you remember, that looks bad. Elastic is horizontal. The line is more horizontal, while inelastic is more vertical, right? Okay, so I'm going to draw, you don't want to draw the demand line, when it says more elastic. You want to make it obvious, but don't make it perfectly elastic. Give it still a little bit of a slant, but make it obvious. So it says outdoors more elastic. So the demand, I'm going to draw like that. And then on the other end, make the other one very inelastic. That way it's just really clear to see the difference. Okay, so then supply is roughly the same. And that's usually what you do with these questions, is when there's some sort of like change, like in this case, difference in elasticity versus demand. In this case, it's demand. One's demand is very elastic, the other one's more inelastic. It means the other one is probably about the same for both. And it's also important that you make the equilibriums roughly in the same spot on each market. So roughly they're both kind of in the middle. That way we avoid any potential errors. Okay. So now it says if the same income tax is imposed on both jobs. So it doesn't matter what we draw. It doesn't have to be exact. But so let's draw a tax wedge. So let's say we draw a tax wedge on this market and it looks something like that. Okay. And then this was our previous equilibrium. And so now it breaks into, we have our buyer price and we have our seller price. This is our seller price. This is our buyer price. Now this is another common mistake. When we're putting the tax, we need to make sure, because remember, if we go back to the previous video on taxes, a tax wedge is the length of the line. So our tax has to be the same length. So if we just pick up this line and put it on this curve, it's going to look something like this. Okay, it's roughly the same length of the line. Okay, so, and then we have our new buyer. This is our buyer price. And this is our seller price. and this was our previous equilibrium. So now we can see some pretty clear distinctions. First of all, first thing to note, is there a difference in deadweight loss between the two? Yes. Outdoor, usually the one that's more elastic, has greater deadweight loss. Okay, that means this one has lesser deadweight loss. What else do we notice? We know that in this one, sellers bear more of the burden. This one, sellers bear less of the burden. And vice versa. This one, buyers bear less of the burden. This one, buyers bear more of the burden. And the way I can see that is look at the area. See how the proportion, buyers bear more, while sellers only have a little bit of the tax. And then here it's flipped. Comparatively, buyers versus sellers. So comparatively, in this market, buyers bear more of the burden than this one. Okay. And then this one, the last one we can see is the tax revenue. Now this one's a little bit trickier. Okay. I think the easy way is it's just the inverse of deadweight loss. So if one has greater deadweight loss, that means it has less tax revenue. And this one can be hard to see sometimes, just how the way we draw our markets. But the best way I can think of is if these equilibriums are in the same quantity, okay, so let's say that this one is 10 and this one is also 10. Because our deadweight loss is greater, this one's moving further away than this one. So that means because it's moving further away, the tax revenue is shrinking. And the height of the tax revenue stays the same because it's the height I have. Height is just the tax. But the length or the base is shrinking, which means that this one will have less tax revenue, this one will have higher tax revenue. So then now we know everything that we would need to know for these kinds of questions. Then we look, it says, if the same income tax is imposed on the markets, the labor market for outdoor recreation will have blank compared to the retail market for jobs. So we could say greater deadweight loss, less or greater seller, like it will affect more the sellers, less of an impact on buyers, or less tax revenue. Either one of those will work in the market for outdoor. Okay. Then it says, suppose a local government wants to raise the most revenue they can while passing on the burden of the tax entirely onto sellers. They should impose the tax on a good with somewhat elastic. So this one's the opposite. We want to see we want it to bear entirely on the sellers, okay? It says with somewhat elastic. So it's gonna be, I'm debating if I want to do this all in this video or if I want to record another video. I think we'll record another video going over this question. Okay, because this is gonna take a second or two to explain. Adam out.